Jim Carrey was once the most famous person on the planet. Seriously, think back to the 90s. You couldn't walk into a movie theater or turn on a TV without seeing his face. He was a human hurricane. I'm talking Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber, all coming out in the same year. It was unheard of. He was the first ever actor in history to pull a $20 million paycheck for a single movie. Back then, that was like winning the lottery every single time you went to work. If his name was on the poster, the movie was a hit, period. He was the loudest, funniest, and most energetic person on earth. But then, something weird happened. The loudest guy in the room just went quiet. The movie started getting spaced out, the red carpet stopped, the late night interviews became rare, and when he did show up, he sounded like a completely different person. He wasn't cracking the same jokes anymore. He wasn't talking about the meaning of life and how Jim Carrey, the character, didn't even exist. It's like the man who made the whole world laugh just walked out of the back door of Hollywood and locked it behind him. So what actually happened? Where did he go? And why would someone at their absolute peak of their game just quit? Today, we're going to get into the real story of why Jim Carrey walked away. To first understand why he left, you first have to realize how big he actually was. We're talking about a guy who went from living in a van with his family as a kid to being the biggest star on earth. That kind of jump does something to your head. By the early 2000s, Jim had everything. The money, the fame, the power to make any movie he wanted. But here's the thing. He started to feel like he was trapped. He was stuck in a box labeled as the funny guy. Think about it. Everywhere he went, people expected him to do the face, the voice, the energy. They didn't want Jim. They wanted the character. He started to realize that fame is a bit of a trick. He has this famous quote. I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed so that they can see that it's not the answer. He had reached the top of the mountain, looked around, and realized the view wasn't what he was promised. He was exhausted from being Jim Carrey. He started to feel like he was wearing a mask every single day of his life. You can actually see the shift start to happen in his movies. He didn't just want to be the guy talking through his butt anymore. He did The Truman Show, which is literally about a guy realizing his entire life is a fake TV show for other people's entertainment. Sound familiar? Then he did The Man on the Moon, where he played Andy Kaufman. He got so deep into that role that he stayed in character even when the cameras weren't rolling. People on set thought he was losing it, but for Jim, it was a breakthrough. He realized that if he could become someone else so easily, then who was he really? He started questioning his own identity. If the world only loves the performer, then who is the guy behind the curtain? This was the beginning of the end for his Hollywood career. He was losing interest in the game. While he was already pulling away, life decided to hit him with a sledgehammer. In 2015, his ex-girlfriend, Catriona White, tragically passed away. It was a total nightmare. But instead of the world giving him space to grieve, the media turned into a circus. It was brutal. Paparazzi were following him to the funeral, and tabloids were printing some of the most toxic, hateful things you can imagine. People were even trying to blame him for a tragedy he was already devastated by. For Jim, that was the final straw. Hollywood didn't feel like a showbiz anymore. It felt like a predator. He didn't want a vacation. He needed to heal. He talked a lot since then about struggling with depression. He realized he couldn't keep the funny guy act while his real life was actually falling apart. He chose his sanity over his career. So what do you do when you're a legend and you stop acting? You find a new way to speak? For Jim, that was painting. He basically barricaded himself in an art studio in New York and just started throwing paint at canvases. This wasn't just some celebrity hobby where he painted for a few flowers. He was making these massive, intense, sometimes chaotic pieces. He released a short documentary called I Needed Color, and in it you see a man who's finally free. He said that for decades, he was following other people's scripts. He was told where to stand, what to say, and how to look. But with a paintbrush, he was the boss. There was no director, no box office pressure, and no expectations. It was pure expression. He started getting into deep philosophy and spirituality, basically telling the world the guy you saw in Ace Ventura was just a character. This is the guy with the paint under his fingernails. This is me. This is where it gets really deep. Jim started giving these interviews that went viral because they were so weird. He'd go on a red carpet and tell the reporter that none of this is real and that there is no Jim Carrey. People thought that he was having a breakdown, but if you really listen to what he was saying, he was having a breakthrough. He was rejecting the idea that he had to be a brand. He realized that he was trying to maintain the image of a Hollywood superstar, what was making him miserable. He decided to stop trying to be a somebody and just be a nobody. It sounds crazy to us because we spend our whole lives trying to be famous or successful. But for him, letting go of all that was the only way he could finally be happy. Fast forward to 2026, and Jim Carrey actually broke the internet again. He made a rare public appearance at the Caesar Awards in Paris to receive an honorary award. People went nuts. Why? Because he looked totally unrecognizable. He showed up with shoulder-length hair and a face that looked so smooth and so different that conspiracy theorists actually started claiming that he was a clone or an impersonator in a mask. It sounds ridiculous, but that's how much he's changed. He's 64 now, and he's clearly moved on from the rubber-faced look that made him famous. In his acceptance speech, which he did entirely in French by the way, he thanked his sublime companion, Min-Ah. This was a huge deal because Jim kept his love life a total secret for years. It showed a man who finally found peace, family, and a quiet life away from the Hollywood grind. Now, I want to be clear, he's not a hermit. He hasn't retired in a way that he's never coming back. He's just incredibly picky now. He did Sonic the Hedgehog movies, and you can tell he's having a blast playing Dr. Robotnik. Why? Because his grandkids love it. He's doing it for them, not for a paycheck or an Oscar. He did a show called Kidding, which was brilliant, but it was also really dark and sad. It dealt with grief and loss, which is exactly what he had been through. He's only doing things that mean something to him now. He isn't chasing the spotlight anymore. If the spotlight wants him, it has to meet him on his own terms. He even said recently that if an angel brings him a script written in gold ink that's important for the world to see, he might do it. But otherwise, he's good. So the big question, why did Jim Carrey disappear? The truth is, he didn't really disappear. He just stopped playing a game that he didn't want to win anymore. He's a reminder to all of us that you can have all the money in the world, all the fame, and all the success. But if you don't have a peace of mind, you have nothing. He says he's frighteningly happy these days. And when you see him now, he looks lighter. He isn't trying to prove anything to anyone. He isn't a rubber-faced comedian making a fool of himself for our entertainment. He's just a man who went through the fire and came out the other side. He found his color and he found his peace. And maybe, in a way, that's the most successful thing he's ever done.